Greetings, market rebels. Welcome to this week's sector situation. It's Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. It's a little bit after, or just in front of, I should say, 11:30 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm doing the sector situation first today and trying to work on a new format to a degree. Here's our trusty disclaimer. Here is our trusty intellectual property rights notice. And here is sector situation plan for this week. Set the playback speed to 2x. I still have renovations going on, and so it might be here with me for a while, dealing with time constraints as part of that. So just really have my hands full lately. It's just the way it is. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move, or try at least to move towards a highlights format and just trying to pull maybe just a few different things together. Unfortunately, the way I look at things, I think all this stuff is sort of intertwined to some extent or degree. So it's hard to separate this from that and keep it all clean and dried. But people prefer that apparently. That's we always get that feedback. So this week there's quite a bit to talk about, I think, but other weeks there won't be as much, I would think, because sometimes the markets are working really harmoniously, and sometimes there's a lot of discord and not much can be pulled out of them. So we're just at a stage where I think there's interesting things emerging, and those are that most sectors are still going along for the ride with this market. SMH, I think, continues to lead this market. You have to ask yourself how much more room there is. We'll show that. We'll talk about it. I think XLK and XLC, the two former leaders that have kind of gone into chill mode, they are trying to re-energize as of right now. They kind of did to an extent. We have to see if they can break out and sustain it. XLE also seems like it could be on the brink of a breakout finally, but again, it's a tough one. Wouldn't be surprised if they put some shenanigans together there on the false breakout and then bring it back and then let it go after that, or they'll just rip it right through because news drives it that way, and you'll get a good burst. We shall see. Also, XAU, we'll take a look at some of those names because it did seem like they also started getting their technical act together. We saw some paper in both of those sectors, some ideas in UOA Pro as a result of that. Also, I'm going to talk about XTN and IWM. So just going to try to streamline this, and from there, let's stop the share briefly, or what can I do? Move to, I'll just stop the share actually and get rid of this stuff, get it out of our way, and then we'll be able to start all over again with the different share. Screen four is what we need. Okay, so this should be my just single chart starting out this week, because I really want to talk about this SMH first. And this is really ripping towards this sort of bigger picture resistance line that I've had on my chart now for a while. I talked about it in the cocktail hour at kind of in the afternoon East Coast time on Friday. Let's get over to a little bit bigger view of this so you could see just how far this goes back. And so there's the channel if you can see it. It's a busy chart, even though it's not that busy considering some other layouts, but I think you can see the orange lines pretty well. So this goes back really to the OC of it looks like OC right when we bottomed here. This SMH goes back to OC to 22. And then again, we bottomed near there, kind of in that fall range, late Oct, early Nov of 23, and it's been up and away. And this has really been powerful, right? And we've tried to keep folks in those in the momentum services and UOA, and I think there's been some good runs that folks have been able to catch, so that's good to see and hear. But now, you have to start questioning it. How much further does it go? There's no ironclad rule that says we can't go above this resistance line. But even when you get into, let's say, excessive periods, usually the line is at least respected somewhat, right? It might just get shredded more easily than we'd expect, but it usually gets respected, at least initially, and they just don't power right through it on their way to unimaginable highs. But a couple things have happened here where this thing just did make it to some projections that we had for it, and Nvidia is obviously, and some other names are a big part of that. But look, it made it to the 100, went right through. So there's still really, I would say, there's still really bullish behavior and likely still demand for this. It's sort of turning into a frenzy. I think I saw something where they said that this is the biggest inflows in the by the I think at least the investing public in the last 2 weeks into semis that's ever been recorded, or at least in some time. And so it wouldn't, neither of course would really surprise me with the way that they've been acting. It's been reminiscent of the late 90s to me, in terms of just chasing, chasing, chasing. But we've tried to keep folks engaged that way because, right, that's really what happens. And you may, again, folks have good reasons to disagree with valuations and other things that they've got problems with. But as far as trading goes, you have to really embrace it, kind of even have to hold your nose, figuratively speaking, and still grab onto these things because they're just really trading vehicles, right? You're not really saying, oh, I'm staking my family's long-term uh, livelihood or welfare on what happens over the next 10 years from here in terms of valuations. You're not doing that, right? You're getting in and you're getting a good ride. Maybe it's hours, maybe it's days, maybe it's weeks, maybe it's even a few months as a trader, but that you're trading it, right? You're not like locking yourself into it, especially if you use options and use them, I think, in the right ways. So I'm thinking, right, this still has more room. As I said, I don't know, recently, let's put it that way, these things find a way to make it to these lines. I call this like the long-term line of like my original trajectory and just in my mind. And once you get this big, I think, second high, you can sort of extrapolate and say if there's another wave to come, where does this eventually reach? And that's really what I've always done. I don't know, instinctively I did that even when I was just getting started, on my own to see what would happen. And it seemed like it was uncannily like reached, and I that's why I've held on to it, all these years later, and it's over 30 years. So I've been doing charting, and I've gotten a lot better at it. Maybe still not great, but a lot better than when I first started. But this is one little sort of legacy thing that just instinctively I did and left there. And this is what I would do now. If you look at, say, a quarterly chart on things, that'll give you a different perspective, right? So I think I've got, well, and it looks like they dumped my quarterly chart on me. Oh well, I don't know what happened to all my. There's other time frames that are missing too. Now that I see that, there should be a 3 year one day. Thinkorswim's got me again. I don't know what happened on that, but anyway, we would have to go back and look at other things to. I would rather have quarterly, just give a really long term view and so on and so forth. But you got to take what you can get. But I think what you want to look at now just is that the slope, right? I think it's the slope of what's happening here. Um, and you really could be having, for all we know, right? It's tough. Like we're inside of it, right? We're living it day to day. We really could have an AI renaissance, right? Something that, I mean, I can't buy into that because of all the evil that people do, and they use technology to execute on their evil. But you know, maybe I'm wrong this time, right? But I just have a very cynical outlook. I spent too much time around Wall Street, I guess. But I, I start getting more concerned, right, when you really start going vertical. And there could be one final melt up phase here. Maybe that won't even be a final one. So this could be where, if your breath hasn't been taken away yet, you could be at the stage where they take your breath away, where you're just like, this is inconceivable. How did this even happen? But then it does. So I would still say, right, it's very tempting to say, well, hey, there's a resistance line there. It should hold. I want to start shorting this thing. This thing's ridiculously overbought. It's checking in with an 80 on the RSI weekly on the weekly charts. That's ridiculous. And I've done this myself. Fortunately, it was many decades ago where I initially got started, and I was thinking in these terms, like this is so rare. But we know that these guys are capable of. All you have to go do is look at the charts in '99 all the way until the peak in March of 2000, and you'll see that things can really get things that will never make a cent. Companies that will never make a cent were trading at incredible levels and valuations, and their stock performance. It was an absolute mania, in the true sense of the word, stock market mania. And it could develop again, right? People are desperate, despite what the press has to say. If you even want to charitably call them the press, excuse me, the public is starving for ways to make some extra money because their wages are not keeping up with what's happened with inflation. And that's if they do have a job. A lot of people are working second and third jobs. A lot of this stuff, it's the same old political stuff that every administration pulls, and they pull it more egregiously with each passing administration. That's just been my experience. So that's almost what I expect. And to me, it doesn't even matter, what party, what half of the uniparty is installed in the White House at that point. But it is what it is. But aside from all that, this could become a take your breath away situation. To me, it's getting towards the stage where if that's going to happen, it should happen soon. After that plays out, however long that takes, right? Then there may be an opportunity, and there may be an opportunity sooner than that too. We can't rule that possibility out. But I think you have to keep watching this as your leader, and the Mag 7 along with it. I mean, this is really what continues to pull things up. As part of this week's program, I think this is pulling everything along with it. I mean, I don't think that's any secret or anything. Certainly, it's not sophisticated, but that's the nature of the market. People look to leaders, and if the leadership areas keep working, that emboldens them. And as millions of people have said before me, and I say as well, buying begets buying, and selling begets selling. And so when the buyers are dominating, and again, I think they're being aided sort of stealthily, because it's not that it's unknown, it's just that it's not really well covered by the so-called financial media, aka Wall Street's clapping seal club. But this XLK, this is making a new high, right? And so this is re-energizing. XLC, these were the leaders. So XLC, XLK, SMH, these were all really the leaders, and these led in 23 before we had a trading top there, and then they sort of chilled. They brought a lot of other sectors along, much like they're doing this year, as we talked about on Cocktail. But look, if you just look at these charts, this really looks good. I mean, what can you really say about that chart that you don't like? I mean, if you're a bull, you have to love that this has been consolidating for really about a month and a half almost. And so that took the overboughtness out of the daily, and it's right near a breakout level. And I'm not saying, hey, I can't wait to go long on this on Monday morning. I'm just saying that it's holding all the SMAs, right? You're above all your SMAs. This is for SMA people, of which I'm really not a big one, but I know a lot of people are. So I try to comment on it. The SMAs are all upsloping at this point, or virtually all upsloping, right? And so you're coming off a nice corrective phase, and that allows the ETF to store up potential energy. So right now they've got it on the cusp of this may be also going. And remember, they brought a lot of other things along for the ride. So let's look at those, right? Here's our sector grid. And as I noted during cocktail hour on Friday, you've got the XLE is starting to participate. Now, we've been waiting for this for a while, and slowly but surely watching this thing try to turn. So we said keep an eye on it this week. It started to finally break out late in the week. The other one I think we were looking for was XTN, right, as an important one. I'll mention this because it's part of our notes this week, but this is really your holdout. I mean, right now I think XLF, XTN, XLE, these two look good. This XLE is not nearly overbought or towards overbought as XLF. I think XLF is sort of losing a little bit of steam up here. But look at the run that it's had. It's been remarkable, right? A remarkable run for the financials, which hadn't done a lot in a long time. But you've got XLI participating, albeit with a very high RSI reading right now. So be careful. XLB, be a little more careful there as well. But they're getting the leadership sectors going. They're bringing energy into this mix. Other things, even like healthcare, real estate, they're hanging in there. Discretionary, right? Another good sign has made a new high. Now, I'm definitely considering this dubious because I think a lot of this is not really well founded on balance. I think a lot of it is, well, let's start fanning this thing out. And if you want to know, like I felt very similarly, really last year, and then that turned out to be the right gut, kind of like gut take on it, where I didn't feel like it was justifiable from what I know in terms of what's happening on a macro basis, domestically and internationally. But again, remember, I'm doing this stuff as best I can under time pressure to do a lot of other things. I don't have the time and resources, unfortunately, to really dig deep into a lot of this stuff, but I feel like they're buying other things up in anticipation that things start to get better. And I don't think that this is well founded yet. I know that this is, we'll mention this in both videos this week. I know that this was exciting. We even said, watch out for it with respect to TNX, but right, that if this started to roll over, you could start to see the market go. And when it did late in the week, the market finally went. So you had another couple of days of selling they absorbed in the markets, but then the green light came towards the end of the week on Thursday and Friday when this thing rolled over harder. So when rates came down, they moved stocks up again. The dollar has also been struggling to really advance, and the dollar itself started to come under a little bit of pressure towards the end of the week again. It was on its way to trying to break out, but you could see Friday they kind of turned it back, put in a new recent high, and then turned it back lower. So if they're able to, now I think I honestly think that could be this could turn out to be a head fake. I don't mean the 1 day thing. I mean, if these things roll over again, I think you have to still keep your eye out that might be a head fake. I'm not sure with what I've been able to gather. I'm not sure how these guys, I know the market's pricing in what it's pricing in, but I'm not so sure that these guys are right again. I mean, I think we've been calling these rate cut guys, we've been calling their bluff and not fighting it, but calling their bluff just in a big picture sense, and we've been right about it. And I still feel that way, that they might try to start shoehorning rate cuts in the summer thanks to political pressure. But right now, they're basically creating the administration is creating liquidity. The Fed is helping to make that possible. The liquidity finds its way into stocks, and everything gets masked. It is what it is. I mean, we've seen this act many times before, again, by administrations that are theoretically under the control of opposing parties. So it is what it is. That's been the game. Not really a good game long term, but the way that these people play the game, they do very well for themselves while they're all there playing these games, and the American people ultimately suffer. But people are apparently okay with that for now. But this is what I would watch out for. I would watch out for if TNX and DXY go from looking like they're vulnerable, which they do right now, and then they suddenly turn and start coming back. Just be careful for that. I'm not predicting this at all. I'm just saying this is one thing that would start to rattle the cage, because these rate cuts are just, the market itself doesn't see anything happening until June. And I wouldn't be surprised with what I'm seeing in terms of inflation perking back up, if that gets kicked out further. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't play golf with the right people every weekend. Very possible, but that's just my gut feeling and the way I look at it right now. Powell's going to really be eating a lot of crow if inflation starts ticking back up and then he starts cutting rates. I mean, that will look very political, and just you look like the hypocrite horse's ass that you are, or maybe that he is. Anyway, let's go back to XTN. So this to me is a problem. If you want to pick at it, right? Why are transports not doing better, right? But they're really not horrible. It's not as if, right, I would watch the 50 on those. You start seeing that come off. That's sort of been a canary in the coal mine for us before, but it could very easily, right, take this little mini cup and handle-ish type setup and start working with this kind of elongated, flattened handle and start working its way back up and join the party. It's not like we haven't seen that happen before. So you're in a spot there where I think you may as well just wait and see what this happens. I wouldn't get too panicky about it just yet. You have to be prudent. You have to still be at like a DEFCON 2.5 or a DEFCON 2 in terms of being ready to play defense, because you're getting towards the latter innings. You are stretched in different ways. You're in extreme greed, that kind of a thing for now, but it's still working, right? And that's really been our thing. Wait until you see something that tells you that it may not work. And one sign would be to look for XTN maybe starting to come down. And if you start to see that, if it weigh on stocks, now other things. Now, if that doesn't happen and it goes up, it's going to be the more the merrier for bulls. And in terms of the more the merrier, IWM, it's been a really good trading vehicle. It's been a little, at times, it's just crazy intraday with the kind of stuff that the gang has been able to pull off there. But look, these small caps now, they made a new closing high. You might say, well, that doesn't impress me, right? It really, look how the other sectors performed. They did much better, and IWM still was lagging. It is, but that's where it offers a lot of potential. So with the true believers and the people that really have maybe the pain trade in their favor, and the people that have the people that are thinking, well, they're buying up everything, we may as well start buying this, that kind of a mindset, which does tend to happen as things broaden out a little bit and you get later stages of a bull phase. They could start coming for this. I've kept a bullish idea in here as much as I can, because I can only work with the paper that comes in for UOA Pro. But it's hard to complain about it, right? It's not really overbought. You could be worried about maybe double topping or false breakout, things like that. But if they do bring that along for the ride, and they get XTN along for the ride, then, and you go back to our sector grid, I mean, really, what can you say about it? What are you going to say? There's a lot of people that have problems with this, that, and the other thing right now. And I get a lot of what they're saying. I see people with their interviews and comments and things like that. But and again, I do consider some of this dubious, but I mean, XLU is almost like an ignore, right? When that starts acting really strongly, that's concerning. But other than that, right, it's really kind of generally like an ignore space. XLI, it's been a powerhouse, right? It's worrisome now that it's overbought to the extent that it is on the daily chart at 74, 75 rounded on RSI, and XLB is getting there. And I don't see the great macro situation setting up yet, but maybe it is globally. I don't know, maybe. But look, you compare they're going after discretionary. XLP though still hanging in there, but this is a good kind of like risk on sign that they're coming after that. They're still coming after real estate. We said after it corrected here, watch and wait and see if this can start to put another leg together. It did a nice job of breaking out, doing the old dawdling around, kind of keep it near the former resistance, now support level that it broke out from. And then when yields rolled over late week, as we talked about, they've got that rolling higher again. Now that maybe is destined to come up here, and if we keep seeing yields roll over, maybe that's destined to test here. But healthcare, like what else can I say? Right, almost everything is working. They have a lot of things like that are working, and even their leadership's coming back. So if you go back to our notes, I mean, that to me, it's hard to really say much about it other than it's later stage, and you're about to maybe go vertical here. But as of right now, we can't be surprised about any of this in some ways. I'm not saying that if you're surprised by this, there's something wrong with you. I'm just saying that, look, this is what they do, right? They focus on one thing. The buying begets buying. It fans out. They get the hype train going. The TV characters or clowns, from whatever your perspective is, they just help the hype train, right? They add fuel to the hype train as much as they can. And then you've got people that are out there logically tying it all together, saying this is madness. And they might be right, but they help because they position themselves that way. And we do know that hedge funds have really done a bang up job of shorting things all over again. So they're back to, right, extremely short. So they might have a whole nother round of covering, and that means, right, that means sort of parabolic melt up type behavior. So if you look at it, you've got all that stuff that's happening, right? Leadership re-energizing, SMH getting worrisome though, but again, no rule that says it can't go much higher. We talked about XLE being on the brink, and we talked about XTN and IWM. So let's now talk about the gold situation. So if I go over to, so let's see, GC, if I get us the gold futures, okay, gold futures are, they were, yep. So there you go, right? You had this, look where you are right now. No, you're just getting up there. Now you're still a little bit off of this high, and I don't know if that's a legit tick or what happened there. It might have, obviously, if it was legit, it was probably, some kind of anomalistic thing. But you're really close to taking out this daily range. Remember, just as a reminder, if you're new, there's an incredible long-term pattern that's in place here. You can sort of see the cup and handle. If you want to go that far, some people are going to argue with that. But again, it's sort of like, if you ask someone, what's this look like to you? I mean, I'd have to say, of all the technical patterns, it looks a lot like a cup and handle with kind of a long handle, right? A kind of messy handle, but regardless, it still resembles that. But that looks right. In other words, like, we've seen this pattern work big time in the markets, even recently in a lot of other things. When we were talking in the fall about, look, if they really get this thing going and save it from here, sometime in November, December, we were talking about this, maybe both. They really could run this market, and they did. I mean, you don't know for sure. You just have to acknowledge what's in place at the time, and then work with it as best you can. But that looks right. That's got potential. If the dollar starts getting crushed, that certainly has potential. And if you go through it, you look at, well, what about like something more people trade, like, can I trade some of the names in there? Or maybe I want to buy into the sector. But the sector, this is too big of a chart for the sector. Let's get a daily on that, because I don't really want to show monthly charts. I'm just trying to show the big picture potential on the monthly charts. But this is starting to double. We were talking about this later in the week, and I think in one of our webinars, but possible, or maybe a up double bottom, maybe, right? Short-term double bottom. They try to take it back up. There's now room to run up towards the 50, 100, 150. Nebula, or whatever we want to call it, nexus. All those things are kind of crossing there. Let's go. Get rid of this time axis. Why is it giving me a price axis? My bad. So there's room there if they want to start moving this back up, and I think it's starting to perk up that way. So you may as well. I think that's what one of the highlights I would keep my eyes on for the week, is that they could start to get this going. It's really would be emerging from sort of an oversold condition on some charts, right? So that could give it a little bit of a boost, but it could be a start. You also have your GLD. The GLD is the shares actually look better than the XAU. There's your GLD ETF. Shares of the CTF look better than the XAU. That's coming in at a high, and you've got the SLV, which I'll cover here. So those are what you've got, and the SLV is on the brink. If it could take out the purple 200, which is basically stopped it in its tracks, I think all it really has at that point then is this high at 2150. So this has really been a dog. We've been avoiding it for a while. I feel very thankful for that. But now we have to acknowledge that it's got a higher low. It's not overbought. It's nowhere close to overbought. There's paper coming in. The dollar could roll over, which, again, I'd keep an eye on that. Dollar DXY on Thinkorswim. If you get through here, you definitely could see a burst. So if this chart remains this good or better when I see paper, I'm hopefully I'll be able to add more ideas to. We have I think just a few, but we'll be able to get something in there that says, hey, it might be time to go. At least there could be a tradable little pop. So that's what I would highlight there. In terms of the other futures, let's look at while we're on the metals, let's look at copper. Copper, yeah, this should give us copper. Higher low there too. Again, still in this kind of range. I know we're not trading it, but we're just taking a glance at it overall. And it's got the higher low to work with. So if it takes out that high, right, these would be encouraging signs. So I think that's part of it. You're kind of getting this sort of like very positive feedback loop in a lot of things, and those technical feedback loops I do think make a difference, and they do get certain players to commit more, bring more capital into certain things, maybe a lot of different things, and so that's what you end up with. But that's starting to do a little bit more, as we said, XLRE, right? That was doing better. It held and started to pop with rates. We kind of talked about it breaking above that 20 and then possibly doing something, and finally has started to do that. XHB is something else that we look at in relation. And of course, that looks still really good, right? Again, this is the best running example of this is why I stay away from trading what I think, right? Because to me, this is just a matter of time before this does not continue. This doesn't work and starts really turning ugly. But as of right now, right, you really can't say anything about it. And that's why I think you got to stick with your charts. But it's already through where I would have expected it to sort of struggle to get through. And it did kind of hesitate there a little bit for a little bit, but it's definitely made it through now. And you can see it tried there, didn't do it, came up about 3 sessions, 4 sessions, 5 sessions. Then it finally kind of really got away from the line a little bit there. So that is just overbought. Virtually everywhere you look, it's overbought. So could there be a melty phase? Sure, there could, but you just got to be very careful, right? When you're trading now, you're not getting in on the ground floor, so to speak. So just keep that in mind when you go and look at that. But that's where we are on that. Unsurprisingly, if you look at, right, this is where this is coming from. I don't know. Maybe it's the spring season. People like to go out, look for new construction, whatever. Here's wood, here's cut. With the 2 ETFs we've been checking on from time to time, they obviously started to do better. But we're not really talking about trading those or anything like that. So I'm just making that kind of a just tour, right, of that little area. And I think really that's probably where we should leave things off. But main messages I've already covered again. My big watches would be XLE and the metals space, right, with XAU or whatever you want to trade in there. I mean, I would go with the best charts myself. I don't really have any favorite names, but the other things I would definitely do are just keep watching your XLK, keep watching your XLC, and then of course, the most important could be watch that SMH to keep leading. But right, with the way that NVIDIA, I had a 761 target in NVIDIA for a long time, and if it managed to make it up there, what would happen, next? And I think on the earnings burst, it went to there. I was watching it trade near there. There's my 761 number. I was watching it trade there for a while, but then right by the time the gang got through with it for the day, it just went right through it. But it was trading around there, and I thought, I wonder if this is going to end up being at least a temporary stopping point. But now you can see that when they've gotten through there, put a nice little pullback together, and they're launching it again, right? So that's why, to me, SMH has a chance to, because of that weighting factor and it being the stock of the decade at this point for in terms of the press, you've got the chance to go not only up to but maybe through. And that would be, right, this would start really, really, really getting into uh, crazy land. But again, that could be the possibility before we see anything, as long as your TNX and your dollar are either at bay or better rolling over. You're probably going to see this behavior continue until it reaches even more of an extreme. So I'm going to end it on that note. I hope you got something out of this video this week, and I hope it can help you out this week. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I'm going to be recording the macro measure very shortly. So thanks again. Have a great conclusion of your weekend. Have a great trading week ahead, and I'll be in touch through the usual media.